Hi everyone, you're watching the lab demos at cloudsecuritymasterclass.com. Each of our labs have a supporting article at our website. Please check those out for a well-rounded learning experience.
In this video lab, we'll be doing a demo to automatically detect when a root user performs any activity on an AWS account and sends a notification to an email address. If you're looking to develop a strategy to protect the AWS root user, this is just one part of the puzzle. Take a look at our detailed strategy for protecting the root user at cloudsecuritymasterclass.com. In this lab, we'll use the setup of a CloudWatch event rule, or what is also called EventBridge, that will trigger a Lambda function, which then sends an email to a recipient using AWS SNS service. So let's start. Okay, so in the first part of this demo, I will be creating a simple notification service or SNS, and this service would be used to send emails to clients who ever subscribe to the service. So I'm going to use this topic whenever root account activity is detected. This topic would be triggered, and this topic would then send an email to whoever is subscribed to this topic, right? So I'm in the SNS menu. I'm going to click on topics here and click on create topic. Now, there are two kinds of topics that can be created, right? One is FIFO, which strictly preserves the message ordering. It's exactly one's message delivery, but it's only offered via the SQS or the simple queue service with Amazon, right? For this demo, since I'm using email delivery, I will have to use the standard one. So I'm going to keep all the defaults here as it is. I'm not going to mess up with those. I'm just going to give a name for this topic. This is going to be demo root account detection, and I'll click on create topic. So with that, our topic is created, and as you can see here, there are currently no subscribers to this topic. So I'll click on create subscription, and it shows you that the topic that you're creating the subscription for is demo root account detection. In the protocol, I'm going to select email, and in the endpoint, I'm going to put the address or the email address here, and I'm just keeping the defaults as it is. I'm going to click on create subscription. Now what this is going to do is going to send an email to my email account with a confirmation that saying that do you agree to be subscribed to this particular topic, right? So if I go back to my account, I would now see that I have got a subscription confirmation notification from AWS saying that you have chosen to subscribe to this topic. To confirm the subscription, click or visit the link below. So all I need to do here is I have to click on confirm subscription, and it will take me to an AWS page where it says subscription confirmed. And if I go back to my SNS topic now, probably need to refresh it. It says, yeah, your status is confirmed. So with that, we have created a topic, and we have subscribed this topic to an email address. So whenever this topic is triggered, it would send an email to this email address. Okay, so now we are going to create a Lambda function, and the job of this Lambda function would be to trigger the SNS topic that we just created. So I'm going to click on create function here. I'm going to give it a name. And I'm going to select the runtime as Python, and in permissions I have already created a role to assign to this function, and the role just provides SNS publish permissions to this Lambda function. So in this execution role, I'm going to say use an existing role, and I'm gonna provide that detect underscore root lambda role, which I have created for that lambda. And in just a minute, I will also show you what permissions that this role exactly has. So again, leaving the default settings as it is, and we'll click on create function. So here's the code. It's pretty straight and simple. What it's essentially doing is that you're getting event in context as input parameters to this Lambda function. It's fetching the account ID from the event. It's getting the event name from the event, and so we'll cover these two elements once we go and create the CloudWatch event rule or the EventBridge for this demo. But essentially, this Lambda function is getting the event whenever a root account logs in or performs any activity. That event is being forwarded to this Lambda function. It's extracting the account where this activity is being done. It's also extracting the name of the event, like what kind of API activity is done by root, and then it's creating an SNS client and publishing a message to the SNS topic that we just created, right? And the subject of that message is going to be root API call detected in this account for this event for this event name, and the body of that message is going to be the event, the entire JSON event that's coming from the CloudWatch event rule. So this is essentially the Lambda function. I've already clicked on deploy, so my Lambda function is now created. And if I go to configuration, I can confirm the permissions that the underlying role has. So if I click on this, it will take me to the IAM menu, where I can confirm two things. One is the trust relationship for this role, which says that this role is to be trusted trusted to be assumed by the Lambda service. And the second thing is the permissions for this role, which shows that this role has SNS publish permissions for this SNS topic that we just created. So now we have created the topic which sends the email to an email address, and we have also created a Lambda function which can trigger this topic, and so that the topic then sends the email to the email address. The only piece of the puzzle remaining now is to create the CloudWatch event rule, or the CloudWatch event bridge, which can detect root user activity and trigger this Lambda function. So now I'm going to go to the AWS EventBridge console, and we will now create a rule or a CloudWatch event rule to detect root user activity. They used to call this CloudWatch event rule before, and now they have changed or created a new service altogether for Amazon EventBridge. So I'm going to click on create rule here, give this rule a name, and we'll select the default here. Now there are two options for any rule. It can either run on a schedule, it can be weekly, monthly, stuff like that, or it can follow a particular pattern. For the purposes of this demo, we want to create a rule with an event pattern, because you want this rule to be triggered or to be set to alarm mode only when a particular event is detected, which is the root user activity. So I will click on next now, and we'll go down here and select the pattern for this rule. I have a pattern already created. We'll copy here, and then I'll explain to you what this pattern is actually doing. So this is the pattern that we'll be using here, and all it's saying is that there are two kinds of activity that this pattern is monitoring for, right? One is AWS API calls via CloudTrail, and the other is AWS console sign-in via CloudTrail. So notice that we need CloudTrail for both of these events to be monitored, and we'll be doing enabling CloudTrail in the next part of this video, just to cover that piece too. But without CloudTrail enabled, this rule will not work. So if you're doing this on your own system, remember that this needs CloudTrail to be enabled in this account, and for the AWS API call activity and the console sign-in to be monitored by CloudTrail for this rule to work. And the other thing that it's doing is that it's filtering on the type of the user identity that's being captured in CloudTrail. So in this case, we want to monitor any root user AWS API or console sign-in attempts via CloudTrail. So that's the purpose behind this event. I will now click on next, and now we get to like the piece where what happens if this rule is triggered, right? So what we want this rule to do is that it should trigger our Lambda function whenever a pattern is detected, and the Lambda function would be the one that we just created, and it's as simple as that, keeping everything default. Whenever this event is detected, it will trigger the Lambda function. So with that, I'll click on create rule, and our rule is now created. Only thing that we need to do now is to enable CloudTrail in this account, and then we can test by signing in with a root user to see if this rule is being triggered, and see if the downstream Lambda function is then triggered by this rule. So now, as we said, that we need CloudTrail to be enabled on this account for all the root user activity logs to be maintained, right? So let me go to the CloudTrail menu and quickly enable that or create a new trail in this account. So I'm in the CloudTrail menu. I'm going to go to trails here, and I don't see any trails. I'll click on create trail. Give this trail a name, and I would let it create the new S3 bucket where it will store all the other clocks. And CloudTrail is something that we have not covered till now in the Cloud Security Masterclass course, but we'll be covering this later in detail. So I would not go into the details of what CloudTrail is doing, but just bear in mind this is creating the audit logs in the account, which will then enable your CloudWatch event rule to be triggered whenever account activity is detected. So it's a prerequisite for this lab. So I'm going to remove all these defaults since this is just a demo, and I will let it monitor or log all the management events, and I'll keep the defaults here on the API activity as well. So with that, I'll click on create trail, and there you go. So our CloudTrail is now created. It should be logging any activities that are being done in the account starting from now. And so what we'll do in the next tab is that we'll now log in with our root account user and see if the CloudWatch event rule is triggered and the subsequent Lambda is triggered from there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is to just quickly test our setup so far. So I'm gonna try to log in with a root user account to see what kind of an detection or email is being sent when root account user is being logged into, right? Until now, I have been using an IAM user to do the setup, right? This time I'm gonna be first time logging with a root user to see what happens. So let's do this. So what's happening in the background is that when I log in to the AWS console using root user, this would have created an event in the CloudTrail log saying, hey, root user has logged in, right? And that event would have then triggered our CloudWatch event rule because it would have got the pattern, and that event rule would have then triggered the Lambda function, and the Lambda function would have triggered the SNS notification, and it should have sent me an email. So let's go and see if what's the email is looking like. So there you go. We have received an email from AWS notifications. Subject to the email is root API call console login detected an account this, and then it gives out an excerpt of the entire the event that was monitored in this case. So this is the logs for the CloudTrail event and all of the parameters that was used within that event rule. So the type of the user here is root. This is the account ID. This is the ARN. And the other parameters. So yes, our system is working as expected. If I go back to our menu, and if I can show you the event rule once. So if I go to my rule again here, and if you go in the monitoring phase of it, it will show you the invocations of this rule, and there you go, this orange line which kind of shows you the sum of all the invocations. So we know that rule was triggered a number of times. So this is one way you can also see if your system is working as expected, right? If you log into the root, if you perform any activity on the root, you should be getting these triggers for these event rules, and which in turn would be triggering the Lambda function and then the SNS. And so since I'm still logged into the root, if I do any other activity in this account, even seeing some of the configurations, like if I go to IAM right now, and if I click on roles, and if I just try to create a new role just for testing purposes, right, this will all be getting logged, and you should be getting emails for all of that as part of your setup. I can go to my email again, and yes, so there is validate policy detected in this account. So So I don't know what this means, but basically some API activity might have triggered when I went to the IM menu. Um, so yeah, so this demo is working as expected, and we are able to see activity notifications for root user activity in our email address.
So this is it for the lab walkthrough. Keep watching out for more videos and articles at cloudsecuritymasterclass.com.